Let me say good morning to you all. It's very good to be able to be with you for Diocesan Synods today. My thanks also to the community of the Tree of Life for their opening worship. I had the privilege of spending a bit of an evening this last week with them, just hearing some of their reflections as they've been praying for the diocese and indeed praying for the nation, joining with the Archbishop's call for prayer for the nation. And we are very, very blessed to have this community of young adults praying for us all. I wanted to offer just another image, if I may, this morning as well, alongside that image of the potter and the clay that the community just referred us to. And this is just a brief verse from Psalm 122. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet are standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem built as a city that is firmly together. To it the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, as was decreed for Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. Peace be within your walls and security within your towers. I will say, peace within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your peace." This is commonly known as one of the pilgrimage psalms. So the picture, if you like, that we can conjure in our minds is that of people who've been journeying towards Jerusalem, some of them traveling for days. And as they arrive at just the outskirts of the city, so they're tired, they're no doubt hungry, thirsty, maybe aching limbs. And yet, at that moment of arrival near to their place of destination, there is also a great sense of anticipation, maybe even excitement within those words. And it's at that moment when the psalmist prays for Jerusalem, praying in effect that Jerusalem would be the place which it is called to be. The name itself, Jerusalem, contains the word shalom, peace or salvation as it's differently translated. But the prayer in effect is that Jerusalem would be the city that it's called to be. I thought that image was appropriate for today for two reasons. One, as we reflect on our journey. And then secondly, as we too pray that we would be the people that God has called us to be. So much of our discussion this morning is going to be focused on the Shape by God Together process. This is the latest stage of our journey together in the Diocese of Leicester. And I'm very conscious that some of you here today will have been part of that journey in the diocese for a long time. Some of you will have seen lots of bishops come and go. You will have maybe even, some of you remember back to the time when Laund Abbey was established as our retreat centre. Some of you will remember St. Philip's being established as our interfaith centre. Some of you will remember the reburial of King Richard III and the reshaping of Cathedral Gardens. Some of you will remember the infamous 2020 process. Others of you will be coming very new to all of this and will still be learning about the history of the diocese. What I think, though, will unite us all at this moment in time is something of the pilgrim's feeling of tiredness. The general sense of fatigue which is around in our society at large at the moment, but also I sense within our churches. Not just because of the journey we've been on, but of course also the very particular situation in which we find ourselves at the moment, with so many in our society suffering with COVID or with the effects of the lockdown. Yes, there is a general sense of tiredness around, and I realize therefore that this is a difficult moment to be thinking about our journey and to be thinking about this next stage of our journey, which we've called the Shape by God Together process. But nevertheless, I retain a hope that just like the pilgrims, you may be able to in some way look forward to the future and wonder at what God is going to do among us, and join with the pilgrims in praying that we may be the people God has called us to be. Today we're going to be inviting you to vote on the process of Shaped by God Together. It is, as I say, only the latest stage of our journey. It's not the destination, far from it. But nevertheless, we're going to ask you to vote both about the process, understanding that we'll need to be very realistic about what we can achieve within a short space of time, but then also asking you to vote about our strategic priorities, which are outlined in the paper that was sent to you. These are all things that we've been working on for some while. It is, as I say, part of our ongoing journey. So when we talk about wanting to establish new communities, we've had many new communities established already through Fresh Expressions of Church and through our church planting program. When we talk about intercultural worshipping communities, again, that work is well underway. We've got a long way still to go with it all, but it is already getting established in the life of the diocese. When we talk about intergenerational communities, we're talking about our schools working with our churches, and indeed the discipleship work that goes on within our homes, particularly at this time as well. Eco-diocese we've discussed before. We hold out great hopes for how we may be able to change in the coming years. And reconciling communities, we'll be touching on that in our conversations even today, as we think not only about the LLF, Living in Love and Faith, resources which have recently been published, but as we look too at the Women's Ministry reports, and in wider discussions, no doubt, we'll touch on all that's going on within our society at the moment. We want to be communities which reconcile, help people work together across differences. And of course, at our heart, we are Anglican communities. These are all part of our journey, and these strategic priorities will, we hope, provide the framework for this next stage of our journey as we seek to discern where God is leading us. And so finally, then, that prayer that we would be the people that God has called us to be. This takes us right back to our roots, right back to our very core of who we are. You may be tired of hearing me talk about our vision as the kingdom of God, of the church as the sign, the instrument, the foretaste of God's kingdom. You'll have heard me talk a lot before about our three key questions about discipleship, how we grow deeper in disciple, how we grow the numbers of disciples, how we grow in our loving service of the world. These things remain our core, and in all our discussions, I'm determined that we keep them at the center of who we are. But our prayer is that we would become the people that God has called us to be. We're not there yet. None of us are. And that's why the church is the space that is given to us to become the people that God has created us to be. So I hope you'll join with me and indeed join with pilgrims down through the ages as we continue to journey on and to pray that we would become the people that God has created us to be.